we see politicians in Washington or anywhere, and we say, I can't imagine getting to that high place. And it's like, you don't have to start there. You can start anywhere. And I think that probably even more so, given that you're, meeting people where they are, you're meeting so many different roles and so many different, state and local governments where they need people who look like you. They need people who look like me. I think people have made a lot this year, as I'm sure you know, as someone who lives in a now a purple state, at least. The theme of 2025 has, been a lot in terms of, what Democrats can do to push back. And like largely kind of what we were talking about earlier, that largely relates to what is happening only in DC. But I'm sure, could you just kind of share with our audience what actually fighting back looks like, not only in state and local government, but also within your leadership position within the Pennsylvania State House? I'm sure it looks a lot different as opposed to what's happening in DC, where you're actually doing some real digging. Can you talk to us a little bit about like what that fighting back looks like for you?
Absolutely. So we in Harrisburg have a budget deadline of June 30th. We have been now over 2 weeks past that budget line because our friends who serve in the Senate, where they have a Republican majority, want Harrisburg to be Washington. They also want to cut back on benefits. They want to cut back on Medicaid. They want to find ways to reduce the governor's proposed spend. They want to find ways to take people who get services, people who need services, people who are, grown with different challenges and disabilities. They want to cut the funding to support them getting help at their homes to bathe and to clothe themselves. I mean, like it's really cruel and harsh. It's tough to even talk about.
Yeah.
But instead of, trying to figure out a way to upstand them or grandstand them, we just sent a compromise budget over to their chamber where we did make a few reductions. We cut the governor's proposed spend by $1 billion, but we did not cut any services. We did not cut any support of public housing, public education, health, Medicaid, that's the state's insurance. Like we didn't make those types of cuts. We found other ways to reduce our spend number because we have to compromise. But at the same time, when you talk about like what's happening in DC versus what's happening locally, there's some of us who are in bodies where it's split. It's Republicans down the hall from
Mm.
where I am in the Senate, and I'm over here in the state house where we have a one seat Democratic majority. But it's still a constant battle. And for us to get through this budget, whenever it works out, y'all stay tuned, figure it out when we can slap files with the governor, whenever that happens, we have to keep fighting because they will take everything we've got and everything we need. And they're feeling themselves because just last year, in Pennsylvania, they're so
Mhm.
happy that they defeated Kamala. They're so happy they defeated Bob Casey. They're so happy that they defeated a Democratic senator incumbent. So they really feeling themselves, right? And they don't want to sit down and work, but we're still in the race for the people. We're not giving up, and we're in charge in this chamber, so we're not going to let them railroad us.
Yeah, and I would even say, how has that looked, I think, in terms of just within the last 6 months? I think, historically, for a lot of us, Pennsylvania was just a blue state. Has that shifted the mindset of not only you, but as the Speaker of the House, to let people kind of inside a little bit, you have to also deal with your caucus. How has that been in terms of you not changing? These are our priorities. We're not changing it. To your point, we might have to meet people where they are now, but we're still doing the same stuff. How has that battle been? Because I know usually after a tough political loss, everybody clutches a little bit and gets a little scared, or hey, I don't know if I can support this now. How has that been, not only in terms of, I think, for yourself personally, but also in terms of managing people, which is a part of what being House Speaker is, right?
Absolutely. So, one of the great things about my colleagues, with us for the second time after an election having only a one seat majority, is we don't stomp like the big dogs, right? We got to bark and we have a bite, but we're not over here like we're in charge and large. Like we are not. Now, our friends in the Senate have a four-seat majority. And out of 50 people, that is significant. So they are large and in charge. So with us having a one seat majority for the second time, we're glad to be here. And we look forward to compromising, but we also have to govern. And with 102 Dems from rural, suburban, and cities, it's a lot of perspectives, it's a lot of different constituencies, and we have to get in a caucus room and talk about our challenges, but also find a way forward. And so I encourage my colleagues every time we're here in Harrisburg to not forget about, their own perspective, but to focus on our goal. What is our goal? Because we're in charge. We did not lose in November of 2024. We flipped the chamber that was down
Mhm.
12 seats in November of 2022. So we're on the rise and we're on the path, right? So now the key is that we're here governing, functioning. And people really was like, one seat majority. Oh, because they're used to members doing their own thing. Like, oh, I can't vote for that. I can't support that. But we've been able to show a great amount of individual and collective leadership because we stick together. When I'm out of this building, folks are like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know what you say, how you keep everybody together. And I say, it's our leadership team, but it's also every representative we're all respected. Like they could easily be sitting in this office as speaker. Like I respect them the same way they respect me. We have an opportunity to talk, but we also can't relish in the defeat. Because if I'm honest, there are Democratic elected officials right now who feel like upset. We all worked so hard. I mean, like I was out the door. I was in and out. I was twisting my hair every week because I'm like, I got another event. I gotta get this together. I gotta get out here. We work it. Like we all worked hard and we lost. And we are lawmakers, but we're not in DC. We want to throw
Yeah.
some punches at that big, beautiful bill. We want to get on the floor and talk about it, but of course, it's not here. It wasn't in front of us. So we also have to
Mhm.
recognize what's in front of us and what we can do now, as they say, to pick up the pieces. What do we do now? What do we do now to let our neighbors know who's in charge when food stamps are cut off? Who made the decision for all these detrimental things to our neighborhoods? How do we tell that story so that when the opportunity comes, we can defeat them electorally and we will never be talking about people taking away food out of our hungry children's mouths or insurance from kids that are sick. We'll never be talking about that again.